So, hello and welcome to the SIHL expansion tournament today. Power rankings! The fun bit. Sort of. So, yeah, I get to run the boards. Yeah. Go 12 to 1. And I'll explain why I do it in the teams in the order that I put the teams in the order I put them. So, starting at number 12. We have the Austin Bandits at number 12. They're not getting any wins. They have 3 points. They're losing to everybody in the book, even some teams that are barely above them. So they're dead last. So then we move on to number 11. The New York Eagles. So the New York Eagles, there's some more story there. They have some wins here, and they have similar story. The 1 win, and then an overtime loss, 3 points. They're just not winning. Very similar story. The 1 win they do have, I did get to cover it. They barely won, 2-1 in regulation. Enough said. Alright, now to number 10. This team, a little better. They're getting some wins, not too many though. And that team is Calgary, the Calgary Cougars. Now, I'm trying to remember who they got wins over. I can't for the life of me. The Calgary Cougars, they're getting the 2 teams that got wins over. They're in the bottom half. They're in the bottom 6. Probably one of them's in the bottom 4 down here. Outside of them. Can't wait till I have actual logo magnets. So I'll regret that 11. There we go. So then we move on to number 9. This one could be controversial because this team is getting wins. Some alright teams, but again, they're not beating any big warrant thing that moving into the second row. And that team is my board almost fell. I'm fine. So that team is the Denver Dragons. So for Denver, yeah, they're getting, I believe they have a win over either Seattle or Philly, which we'll get to them. But that's really it. That's the only half-decent team. Maybe Miami might have been one of them. That's really the only real half-decent team we have. So the Dragons, they're okay. Are they good? No. Are they terrible? No. Because they're like, okay, you're winning, but half the teams are winning around this bottom row here, which maybe next week they get out of the bottom row. This is the first time first ever power ranking, so I didn't really acknowledge that. So that was just the tag in the back of my shirt. Got the Monsters gear on again. Having a recap as well. As we continue on, right? Now this team is really interesting because they're doing. So if you look at the standings, to show that they're on posts, by the way. I post them every time I do either a power rankings or a panic index. So this team, they look pretty good, but the teams they're beating, they're all down here. They're in the bottom 5. Maybe one team they beat is, I don't even know. But you'll see. So, number 8, CLA Monsters. They beat the Eagles. They beat the Bandits. They beat Denver. You get my point? That's like all the teams they've beaten. Maybe one of those was Miami. I don't remember. I know for a fact they beat Denver at least once. Pretty sure they beat Austin. I don't remember if they beat New York, but maybe I misremember. I feel like they did, but maybe I'm misremembering and they beat a team maybe up here, but they beat Winnipeg. Did they beat Kansas City? Did they beat San Diego? Did they beat Minnesota? Yeah, we'll get to them. Did they beat Winnipeg or San Diego? No. They're not beating any of the teams that are up here. So we'll get to them. I did kind of spoil them there, but we'll get to them. Now to number 7. Remember, who did I... This is why I have my phone. Yeah, I have my phone here. So... Okay. So number 7 is the Miami Vipers. Similar story to Denver. They're beating teams, but the teams they're beating are down here. They beat like one good team. Don't remember which one. But they're not beaten. They're okay. They win when they need to. Do they win against the great teams? Do they win by big margins? No. So on to the next team. This team, we're starting to get into teams that look actually pretty decent. So just took me a minute, me fiddling with the board there. Should be cut out. So, number 6, the Seattle Stingrays. Here's an interesting one. They're not exactly beating the teams, but they've played a lot of opponents that are up here. If they don't win, they aren't exactly winning, but they're getting a lot of overtime points from, because they've lost to Kansas City in overtime, and I believe they've lost to Winnipeg in overtime as well. To them or LA. Which LA, yeah, they're weird because statistically they're a good team. Just their opponents, they've been really easy opponents, so I'm not ranking them that high. So they'll continue on. Alright, yep. Philly. The Philadelphia Falcons. They seem to be quite the contender. They are competing with some of these teams up higher. They're able to beat the teams down low too. They beat Austin last night. Really feels like tonight for me, since I'm recording this like at midnight. You'll see tomorrow morning. The Falcons, they're scoring goals. That's kind of why I put them on. They're competitive. And the record's not entirely bad either. They had a really bad first 2 games, and then they've started to pick themselves up to an okay place. They're all right. But it seemed like their season was doomed after the first 3 games, 0-2-1. So, maybe just 1-2. I think they lost the first 2 games. That's probably why I thought the Panic didn't accept with them near these guys. And it's the early part of this. Teams are going to be flying up and down. When I do baseball, I'm going to only do power rankings. I can't wait. I can't imagine what that's going to be like. So then in the top 4. That's where you want to be. So number 4. So Minnesota North Stars. I believe they beat the LA Monsters, who are statistically a pretty good team. They beat Denver, I believe. I'm pretty sure they beat Seattle, and I think they beat San Diego. That's probably the main reason they're up here. If San Diego or Philly, they beat one, maybe Seattle. They beat one of these pretty solid teams. Not exactly best, but still a good team. So, and the record's pretty solid too. Currently, they're 5th in the standings. So now we stroll along. We're getting towards the end here. I did reveal these earlier. If you were paying attention, and if you remember, hold on. So number 3, San Diego. Why I say San Diego? I believe they've beaten. I don't think they're. If they played Minnesota, they lost that game. If they did, I don't remember certain games. I remember off the top of my head. San Diego. They were able to beat. They did beat Philly. Hold on. They beat Miami. That's who they beat. San Diego. They beat Miami pretty well, so that'll help. And they're competitive against. They're up here. They're not exactly up here, but their current record's 4-2. So that's why 4 wins. You're gonna be in the top 5. 4 wins. That's really good. That is the highest. Outside the number 1, that team has the most wins. Outside of number 1, they have the most wins in the league. That's why they're 3. There's another one. Number 2. Usually I would put Can, but for this KC, just because I don't want to run out of room. So the Kansas City Wings are number 2. Probably the same. It would look like they'd be third in the standings, but they're getting a lot of goals. They score a lot. They're scoring a lot of goals. That's why they're as high as they are. They're getting like 5-1 wins, 4 goal differentials per game, which is just, that is great. That's why they're up there. And they haven't lost a game in regulation. That's why they're up here. They have not lost a game in regulation, which you can't say about any. You can't say it about Minnesota. But outside of Minnesota, the only other team you can say that about is number 1. Should be if you've been following, should be obvious to nobody. I know it looks terrible, but number 1 is the Winnipeg Wolfpack. 5-1-0, just fantastic. Yesterday, a 2-1 overtime win over the Seattle Stingrays. Fantastic. Need I say more? They were 4-0, and they get a loss. Maybe they overachieved a bit. They're the only team with double digits to this point. Double digits in points to this point. They're the best record. They're getting wins, usually by big margins. They're just fantastic. So that pretty much wraps it up. The Winnipeg Wolfpack and our number 1 this week. The number 1 the first week. That'll do it for this one. Thanks for tuning in. Goodbye.